Section 3 of Catalogs to Sleep By. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Excerpts from Crosby, Lockwood & Sons Catalog of Scientific, Technical, and Industrial Books by Crosby, Lockwood & Son, 1901. Marine Engineering, Shipbuilding, Navigation, etc. The Naval Architect's and Shipbuilder's Pocketbook of Formulae, Rules, and Tables, and Marine Engineers and Surveyors' Handybook of Reference by Clement Macro, M.I.N.A. 7th edition, 700 pages, with 300 illustrations. Foolscap, leather, 12 shillings 6 pence. Wanen's Marine Engineer's Guide to Board of Trade Examinations for Certificates of Competency, containing all latest questions to date, with simple, clear, and correct solutions, elementary and verbal questions and answers, complete set of drawings with statements completed, by A. C. Wanen, C.E., and E. W. I. Wanen, M.I.M.E., illustrated with numerous engravings. Crown octavo, 370 pages, cloth, 8 shillings 6 pence. Wanen's Marine Engineer's Pocketbook, containing the latest Board of Trade rules and data for marine engineers, by A. C. Wanen, 2nd edition, carefully revised. Square octodecimo, with thumb index, leather, 5 shillings. Marine Engines and Steam Vessels, a Treatise on, by Robert Murray, C.E., 8th edition, thoroughly revised, with considerable additions by the author, and by George Carlyle, C.E., Senior Surveyor to the Board of Trade, 12mo, cloth, 4 shillings 6 pence. Sea terms, phrases, and words, Technical Dictionary of, used in the English and French languages, English-French, French-English, for the use of seamen, engineers, pilots, shipbuilders, shipowners, and shipbrokers, compiled by W. Peary, late of the African Steamship Company. Foolscap octavo, cloth limp, 5 shillings. Electric Ship Lighting, a handbook on the practical fitting and running of ship's electrical plant for the use of shipowners and builders, marine electricians, and seagoing engineers in charge, by J. W. Urquhart, author of Electric Light, Dynamo Construction, etc. 2nd edition, revised and extended, 326 pages, with 88 illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth, just published, 7 shillings 6 pence. Marine Engineer's Pocketbook, consisting of useful tables and formulae, by Frank Proctor, A.I.N.A., 3rd edition, Royal 32mo, leather, gilt edges, with strap, 4 shillings. Elementary Engineering, a manual for young marine engineers and apprentices, in the form of questions and answers on metals, alloys, strength of materials, construction and management of marine engines and boilers, geometry, etc., etc., with an appendix of useful tables, by J. S. Brewer. Crown octavo, cloth, 1 shilling 6 pence. Practical Navigation, consisting of the Sailor's Sea Book, by James Greenwood and W. H. Rosser, together with the exquisite mathematical and nautical tables for the working of the problems, by Henry Law, C.E., and Professor J. R. Young, illustrated, 12mo, strongly half-bound, 7 shillings. Marine Engineer's Drawing Book, adapted to the requirements of the Board of Trade Examinations, by John Locke, C.E., with 22 plates, drawn to scale, Royal Octavo, cloth, 3 shillings 6 pence. The Art and Science of Sailmaking, by Samuel B. Sadler, practical sailmaker, late in the employment of Messrs. Ratsey and Hapthorne, of Cowes and Gosport, with plates and other illustrations, small quarto, cloth, 12 shillings 6 pence. Chain cables and chains, comprising sizes and curves of links, studs, etc. Iron for cables and chains, chain cable and chain making, forming and welding links, strengths of cables and chains, certificates for cables, marking cables, prices of chain cables and chains, historical notes, statutory tests, charge for testing, list of manufacturers of cables, etc., etc. By Thomas W. Trail, F.E.R.N., M.I.C.E., Engineer Surveyor-in-Chief, Board of Trade, Inspector of Chain Cable and Anchor Proving Establishments, and General Superintendent, Lloyd's Committee on Proving Establishments, with numerous tables, illustrations, and lithographic drawings, folio, cloth, beveled boards, £2, 2 shillings. Electricity, electrical engineering, etc. Submarine telegraphs, their history, construction, and working, founded in part on Bunzendorf's Traité de télégraphie sous-marine, and compiled from authoritative and exclusive sources, by Charles Bright, F.R.S.E., Super Royal Octavo, about 780 pages, fully illustrated, including maps and folding plates, just published, net £3, 3 shillings. The Electrical Engineer's Pocket Book, consisting of modern rules, formulae, tables, and data, by H.R. Kemp, M.I.E.E., A.M.I.C.E., Technical Officer, Postal Telegraphs, author of a Handbook of Electrical Testing, the Engineer's Yearbook, etc. Second edition, thoroughly revised, with additions, with numerous illustrations, Royal 32 Mo, oblong, leather, 5 shillings. Electric Light Fitting, a handbook for working electrical engineers, embodying practical notes on installation management, by J. W. Urquhart, electrician, author of Electric Light, etc., with numerous illustrations. Third edition, revised, with additions. Crown Octavo, cloth, just published, 5 shillings. Electric Light, its production and use embodying plain directions for the treatment of dynamo electric machines, batteries, accumulators, and electric lamps, by J. W. Urquhart, C.E., 6th edition, revised, with additions and 145 illustrations. Crown Octavo, cloth, just published, 7 shillings 6 pence. Dynamo Construction, a practical handbook for the use of engineer constructors and electricians in charge, embracing framework building, field magnet and armature winding and grouping, compounding, etc., with examples of leading English, American, and continental dynamos and motors, by J. W. Urquhart, author of Electric Light, etc. Second edition, enlarged, with 114 illustrations. Crown Octavo, cloth, 7 shillings 6 pence. The Management of Dynamos, a handy book of theory and practice for the use of mechanics, engineers, students, and others in charge of dynamos by G. W. Loomis Patterson. Second edition, thoroughly revised and enlarged, with numerous illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth. Just published, 4s. 6d. The Standard Electrical Dictionary, a popular encyclopedia of words and terms used in the practice of electrical engineering, by T. O'Connor Sloan, A.M., Ph.D. Second edition, with appendix to date. Crown octavo, 680 pages, 390 illustrations, cloth. Just published, 7s. 6d. Electric Ship Lighting, a handbook on the practical fitting and running of ship's electrical plant, for the use of ship owners and builders, marine electricians, and seagoing engineers in charge, by J. W. Urquhart, C.E. Second edition, revised and extended. 326 pages, with 88 illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth. Just published, 7s. 6d. Electric Light for Country Houses, a practical handbook on the erection and running of small installations, with particulars of the cost of plant and working, by J. H. Knight. Second edition, revised. Crown octavo, wrapper. Just published, 1s. Electrical Lighting, Elementary Principles of, by Alan A. Campbell Swenton, M.I.C.E., M.I.E.E., 4th edition, revised, with 16 illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth. Just published, 1s. 6d. Dynamic Electricity and Magnetism, by Philip Atkinson, A.M., Ph.D., author of Elements of Static Electricity, etc. Crown octavo, 417 pages, with 120 illustrations. Cloth, 10s. 6d. Power transmitted by electricity and applied by the electric motor, including electric railway construction, by P. Atkinson, A.M., Ph.D., with 96 illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth, 7s. 6d. How to Make a Dynamo, a practical treatise for amateurs, containing numerous illustrations and detailed instructions for constructing a small dynamo to produce the electric light, by Alfred Crofts, 6th edition, revised and enlarged. Crown octavo, cloth. Just published, 2s. The Student's Textbook of Electricity, by H. M. Node, F.R.S., cheaper edition, 650 pages, with 470 illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth, 9s. Architecture, Building, etc. Practical Building Construction, a handbook for students preparing for examinations, and a book of reference for persons engaged in building, by John Parnell Allen, surveyor, lecturer on building construction at the Durham College of Science, Newcastle-on-Tyne. 3rd edition, revised and enlarged. Medium octavo, 450 pages, with 1,000 illustrations. Cloth. Just published, 7s. 6d. Practical Masonry, a guide to the art of stone cutting, comprising the construction, setting out, and working of stairs, circular work, arches, niches, domes, pentatives, vaults, tracery windows, etc., etc., for the use of students, masons, and other workmen, by William R. Purchas, Building Inspector to the Borough of Hove. 3rd edition, with glossary of terms. Royal Octavo, 142 pages, with 52 lithographic plates, comprising nearly 400 separate diagrams, cloth. Just published, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Concrete, Its Nature and Uses. A book for architects, builders, contractors, and clerks of works, by George L. Sutcliffe, ARIBA, 350 pages, with numerous illustrations. Crown octavo, cloth, 7 shillings, 6 pence. The Mechanics of Architecture, a treatise on applied mechanics, especially adapted to the use of architects, by E. W. Tarn, M.A., author of The Science of Building, etc. Second edition, enlarged, illustrated with 125 diagrams. Crown octavo, cloth, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Lockwood's Builder's Price Book for 1900, a comprehensive handbook of the latest prices and data for builders, architects, engineers, and contractors, reconstructed, rewritten, and greatly enlarged, by Francis T. W. Miller. 800 closely printed pages, crown octavo, cloth, 4 shillings. The Decorative Part of Civil Architecture, by Sir William Chambers, F.R.S., with portrait, illustrations, notes, and an examination of Grecian architecture, by Joseph Gwilt, F.S.A., revised and edited by W. H. Leeds. 66 plates, quarto, cloth, 21 shillings. A handy book of villa architecture, being a series of designs for villa residences in various styles, with outline specifications and estimates, by C. Wicks, architect, author of The Spires and Towers of England, etc. 61 plates, quarto, half Morocco, gilt edges, £1, 11 shillings, 6 pence. The Architect's Guide, being a textbook of useful information for architects, engineers, surveyors, contractors, clerks of works, etc., etc. By Frederick Rogers, architect, 3rd edition, crown octavo, cloth, 3 shillings, 6 pence. Architectural Perspective, the whole course and operations of the draftsman in drawing a large house in linear perspective, illustrated by 43 folding plates, by F. O. Ferguson, 2nd edition, enlarged, octavo, boards, 3 shillings, 6 pence. Practical Rules on Drawing, for the Operative Builder and Young Student in Architecture, by George Pine. 14 plates, quarto, boards, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Measuring and Valuing Artificer's Work, the Student's Guide to the Practice of, containing directions for taking dimensions, abstracting the same, and bringing the quantities into bill, with tables of constants for valuation of labor and for the calculation of areas and solidities. Originally edited by E. Dobson, architect, with additions by E. W. Tarn, M.A., 7th edition, revised, with 8 plates and 63 woodcuts, crown octavo, cloth, just published, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Technical Guide, Measurer, and Estimator for Builders and Surveyors, containing technical directions for measuring work in all the building trades, complete specifications for houses, roads, and drains, and an easy method of estimating the parts of a building collectively, by A. C. Beaton, 9th edition, waistcoat pocket size, gilt edges, 1 shilling, 6 pence. Constructional iron and steel work, as applied to public, private, and domestic buildings. A practical treatise for architects, students, and builders, by F. Campen, Crown 8vo, cloth, just published, 3s. 6d. Specifications for Practical Architecture, a guide to the architect, engineer, surveyor, and builder, with an essay on the structure and science of modern buildings, upon the basis of the work by Alfred Bartholomew, thoroughly revised, corrected, and greatly added to by Frederick Rogers, architect. 3rd edition, revised, 8vo, cloth, 15s. The House Owner's Estimator, or What Will It Cost to Build, Alter, or Repair? A price book for unprofessional people as well as the architectural surveyor and builder, by J. D. Simon, edited by F. T. W. Miller, ARIBA, 5th edition, carefully revised, Crown 8vo, cloth, just published, net 3s. 6d. Natural Science, etc. The Visible Universe. Chapters on the Origin and Construction of the Heavens, by J. E. Gore, FRAS, author of Star Groups, etc. Illustrated by 6 stellar photographs and 12 plates. Demi-8vo, cloth, 16s. Star Groups, A Student's Guide to the Constellations, by J. Ellard Gore, FRAS, MRIA, etc. Author of The Visible Universe, The Scenery of the Heavens, etc., with 30 maps. Small quarto, cloth, 5s. An Astronomical Glossary, or Dictionary of Terms Used in Astronomy, with tables of data and lists of remarkable and interesting celestial objects, by J. Ellard Gore, FRAS, author of The Visible Universe, etc. Small Crown 8vo, cloth, 2s. 6d. The Microscope, Its Construction and Management, including Technique, Photomicrography, and the Past and Future of the Microscope, by Dr. Henry Van Herk, re-edited and augmented from the 4th French edition, and translated by Wen E. Baxter, FGS, 400 pages, with upwards of 250 woodcuts. Imperial 8vo, cloth, 18s. Astronomy, by the late Reverend Robert Main, M.A., FRS, 3rd edition, revised by William Thine Lynn, B.A., FRAS, formerly of the Royal Observatory, Greenwich, 12mo, cloth, 2s. A Manual of the Mollusca, a treatise on recent and fossil shells, by S. P. Woodward, ALS, FGS, with an appendix on recent and fossil conchological discoveries, by Ralph Tate, ALS, FGS, with 23 plates and upwards of 300 woodcuts. Reprint of 4th edition, 1880. Crown 8vo, cloth, 7s. 6d. The Twin Records of Creation, or Geology and Genesis, Their Perfect Harmony and Wonderful Concord, by G. W. V. Laveau, 8vo, cloth, 5s. Handbook of Mechanics, by Dr. Lardner, enlarged and rewritten by Benjamin Lowy, FRAS, 378 illustrations, post 8vo, cloth, 6s. Handbook of Hydrostatics and Pneumatics, by Dr. Lardner, new edition, revised and enlarged by Benjamin Lowy, FRAS, with 236 illustrations. Post octavo, cloth, 5 shillings. Handbook of Heat by Dr. Lardner, edited and rewritten by Benjamin Lowy, FRAS, etc. 117 illustrations. Post octavo, cloth, 6 shillings. Handbook of Optics by Dr. Lardner, new edition, edited by T. Oliver Harding, B.A., London, with 298 illustrations. Small octavo, 448 pages. Cloth, 5 shillings. Electricity, Magnetism, and Acoustics by Dr. Lardner, edited by George Carey Foster, B.A., FCS, with 400 illustrations. Small octavo, cloth, 5 shillings. Handbook of Astronomy by Dr. Lardner, 4th edition, revised and edited by Edwin Duncan, FRAS, Royal Observatory, Greenwich, with 38 plates and upwards of 100 woodcuts. Octavo, cloth, 9 shillings 6 pence. Museum of Science and Art, edited by Dr. Lardner, with upwards of 1,200 engravings, in 6 double volumes, £1, 1 shilling, in a new and elegant cloth binding, or handsomely bound in half morocco, £1, 11 shillings 6 pence. Separate books formed from the above. Common Things Explained, 5 shillings. The Microscope, 2 shillings cloth. Popular Geology, 2 shillings 6 pence, cloth. Popular Physics, 2 shillings 6 pence, cloth. Steam and its Uses, 2 shillings, cloth. Popular Astronomy, 4 shillings 6 pence, cloth. The Bee and White Ants, 2 shillings, cloth. The Electric Telegraph, 1 shilling 6 pence. Natural Philosophy for Schools by Dr. Lardner, Foolscap octavo, 3 shillings 6 pence. Animal Physiology for Schools by Dr. Lardner, Foolscap octavo, 3 shillings 6 pence. The Electric Telegraph by Dr. Lardner, revised by E. B. Bright, FRAS, Foolscap octavo, 2 shillings 6 pence. Industrial Arts, Trades, and Manufactures. Tea Machinery and Tea Factories, a descriptive treatise on the mechanical appliances required in the cultivation of the tea plant and the preparation of tea for the market, by A. J. Wallace Taylor, AMICE, medium octavo, 468 pages, with 218 illustrations. Just published. Net, 25 shillings. Flour Manufacture, a treatise on milling science and practice, by Friedrich Kick, Professor of Mechanical Technology in the Imperial German Polytechnic Institute, Prague. Translated from the second enlarged and revised edition, with supplement, by H. P. Powells, Associate Member, Institution of Civil Engineers. Nearly 400 pages, illustrated with 28 folding plates and 167 woodcuts. Royal octavo, cloth, £1, 5 shillings. Cotton Manufacture, a manual of practical instruction of the processes of opening, carding, combing, drying, doubling, and spinning of cotton, the methods of dyeing, etc., for the use of operatives, overlookers, and manufacturers, by John Lister, Technical Instructor, Pendleton. Octavo, cloth, 7 shillings 6 pence. Modern Cycles, a practical handbook on their construction and repair, by A. J. Wallace Taylor, AMICE, author of Refrigerating Machinery, etc., with upwards of 300 illustrations. Crown 8vo, cloth, just published, 10 shillings 6 pence. Cements, pastes, glues, and gums, a practical guide to the manufacture and application of the various agglutinants required in the building, metalworking, woodworking, and leatherworking trades, and for workshop, laboratory, or office use, with upwards of 900 recipes and formulae, by H. C. Standage, chemist, 3rd edition, Crown 8vo, cloth, just published, 2 shillings. The Art of Soap Making, a practical handbook of the manufacture of hard and soft soaps, toilet soaps, etc., including many new processes, and a chapter on the recovery of glycerin from waste lye, by Alexander Watt, 5th edition, revised, with an appendix on modern candle making. Crown 8vo, cloth, 7 shillings 6 pence. Practical Paper Making, a manual for paper makers and owners and managers of paper mills, with tables, calculations, etc., by G. Clapperton, papermaker, with illustrations of fibers from microphotographs. Crown 8vo, cloth, 5 shillings. The Art of Paper Making, a practical handbook of the manufacture of paper from rags, esparto, straw, and other fibrous materials, including the manufacture of pulp from wood fiber, with a description of the machinery and appliances used, to which are added details of processes for recovering soda from waste liquors, by Alexander Watt, author of The Art of Soap Making, with illustrations. Crown 8vo, cloth, 7 shillings 6 pence. A treatise on paper, for printers and stationers, with an outline of paper manufacture, complete tables of sizes and specimens of different kinds of paper, by Richard Parkinson, late of the Manchester Technical School. Demi-8vo, cloth, just published, 3 shillings 6 pence. The Art of Leather Manufacture, being a practical handbook in which the operations of tanning, currying, and leather dressing are fully described, and the principles of tanning explained, and many recent processes introduced, as also methods for the estimation of tannin, and a description of the arts of glue boiling, gut dressing, etc., by Alexander Watt, author of Soap Making, etc., 4th edition, Crown 8vo, cloth, 9 shillings. The Art of Boot and Shoe Making, a practical handbook including measurement, last fitting, cutting out, closing, and making, with a description of the most approved machinery employed, by John B. Leno, late editor of St. Crispin and the Boot and Shoemaker, 12mo, cloth, 2 shillings. Wood Engraving, a practical and easy introduction to the study of the art, by W. N. Brown, 12mo, cloth, 1 shilling 6 pence. Modern Horology in Theory and Practice, translated from the French of Claudius Saunier, ex-director of the School of Horology at Macon, by Julian Triplin, F.R.A.S., Besançon watch manufacturer, and Edward Rigg, M.A., assayer in the Royal Mint, with 78 woodcuts and 22 colored copper plates. 2nd edition, Super Royal 8vo, cloth, £2 2 shillings. half calf, 2 pounds, 10 shillings. The Watch Adjuster's Manual, a practical guide for the watch and chronometer adjuster in making springing, timing, and adjusting for isochronism, positions, and temperatures, by C. E. Fritz. 370 pages, with illustrations, octavo, cloth, 16 shillings. The Watchmaker's Handbook, intended as a workshop companion for those engaged in watchmaking and the allied mechanical arts, translated from the French of Claudius Saunier and enlarged by Julian Triplin, F.R.A.S., and Edward Rigg, M.A., assayer in the Royal Mint. 3rd edition, octavo, cloth, 9 shillings. A History of Watches and Other Timekeepers, by James F. Kendall, M.B.H., Institutional Boards, 1 shilling, 6 pence, or cloth, gilt, 2 shillings, 6 pence. Electrodeposition, a practical treatise on the electrolysis of gold, silver, copper, nickel, and other metals and alloys, with descriptions of voltaic batteries, magneto and dynamo electric machines, thermopiles, and of the materials and processes used in every department of the art, and several chapters on electrometallurgy, by Alexander Watt, author of Electrometallurgy, etc. 3rd edition, revised. Crown octavo, cloth, 9 shillings. Electrometallurgy, practically treated, by Alexander Watt, 10th edition, including the most recent processes, 12mo, cloth, 3 shillings, 6 pence. Jeweler's Assistant in Working in Gold, a practical treatise for masters and workmen, compiled from the experience of 30 years workshop practice, by George E. G., author of the Goldsmith's Handbook, etc. Crown octavo, cloth, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Electroplating, a practical handbook on the deposition of copper, silver, nickel, gold, aluminium, brass, platinum, etc., etc., by J. W. Urquhart, C.E., 4th edition, revised, Crown octavo, cloth, just published, 5 shillings. Electrotyping, the reproduction and multiplication of printing surfaces and works of art by the electrodeposition of metals, by J. W. Urquhart, C.E., Crown octavo, cloth, 5 shillings. Goldsmith's Handbook, by George E. G., jeweler, etc., 5th edition, 12mo, cloth, 3 shillings. Silversmith's Handbook, by George E. G., jeweler, etc., 3rd edition, with numerous illustrations, 12mo, cloth, 3 shillings. The above 2 works together, strongly half-bound, price 7 shillings. Sheet Metal Worker's Instructor, comprising a selection of geometrical problems and practical rules for describing the various patterns required by zinc, sheet iron, copper, and tin plate workers, by Reuben Henry Warne. New edition, revised and greatly enlarged, by Joseph G. Horner, A.M.I.M.E. Crown octavo, 254 pages, with 430 illustrations. Cloth, just published, 7 shillings, 6 pence. Bread and Biscuit Baker's and Sugar Boiler's Assistant, including a large variety of modern recipes, with remarks on the art of bread making, by Robert Wells, 3rd edition, Crown octavo, cloth, 2 shillings. Pastry Cook and Confectioner's Guide, for hotels, restaurants, and the trade in general, adapted also for family use, by R. Wells, author of The Bread and Biscuit Baker, Crown Octavo, cloth, 2s. Ornamental Confectionery, a guide for bakers, confectioners, and pastry cooks, including a variety of modern recipes and remarks on decorative and colored work, with 129 original designs, by Robert Wells, 2nd edition, Crown Octavo, 5s. The Modern Flour Confectioner, wholesale and retail, containing a large collection of recipes for cheap cakes, biscuits, etc., with remarks on the ingredients used in their manufacture, by Robert Wells, author of The Bread and Biscuit Baker, etc., Crown Octavo, cloth, 2s. Rubber hand stamps and the manipulation of rubber, a practical treatise on the manufacture of India rubber hand stamps, small articles of India rubber, the hectograph, special inks, cements, and allied subjects, by T. O'Connor Sloan, A.M., Ph.D., with numerous illustrations, square octavo, cloth, 5s. Handy Books for Handicrafts, by Paul N. Hasluck, editor of Work, New Series, author of Lathe Work, Milling Machines, etc., Crown Octavo, 144 pages, price 1s. each. The Metal Turner's Handybook, a practical manual for workers at the foot lathe, with over 100 illustrations, 1s. The Wood Turner's Handybook, a practical manual for workers at the lathe, with over 100 illustrations, 1s. The Watch Jobber's Handybook, a practical manual on cleaning, repairing, and adjusting, with upwards of 100 illustrations, 1s. The Pattern Maker's Handybook, a practical manual on the construction of patterns for founders, with upwards of 100 illustrations, 1s. The Mechanic's Workshop Handybook, a practical manual on mechanical manipulation, embracing information on various handicraft processes, with useful notes and miscellaneous memoranda, comprising about 200 subjects, 1s. The Model Engineer's Handybook, a practical manual on the construction of model steam engines, with upwards of 100 illustrations, 1s. The Clock Jobber's Handybook, a practical manual on cleaning, repairing, and adjusting, with upwards of 100 illustrations, 1s. The Cabinet Maker's Handybook, a practical manual on the tools, materials, appliances, and processes employed in cabinet work, with upwards of 100 illustrations, 1s. The Woodworker's Handybook of Manual Instruction, embracing information on the tools, materials, appliances, and processes employed in woodworking, with 104 illustrations, 1s. Commerce, Counting Housework, Tables, etc. Lessons in Commerce, by Professor R. Gambaro of the Royal High Commercial School at Genoa, edited and revised by James Galt, Professor of Commerce and Commercial Law in King's College, London, 2nd edition, revised, Crown Octavo, 3s. 6d. The Foreign Commercial Correspondent, being aids to commercial correspondence in 5 languages, English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish, by Conrad E. Baker, 2nd edition, Crown Octavo, cloth, 3s. 6d. Factory Accounts, Their Principles and Practice, A handbook for accountants and manufacturers, with appendices on the nomenclature of machine details, the income tax acts, the rating of factories, fire and boiler insurance, the factory and workshop acts, etc., including also a glossary of terms and a large number of specimen rulings, by Emil Gark and J. M. Fells, 4th edition, revised and enlarged, demi-octavo, 250 pages, strongly bound, 6 shillings. Modern Metrology, a manual of the metrical units and systems of the present century, with an appendix containing a proposed English system, by Lois D. A. Jackson, AMICE, author of Aid to Survey Practice, etc. Large crown octavo, cloth, 12 shillings 6 pence. A series of metric tables, in which the British standard measures and weights are compared with those of the metric system at present in use on the continent, by C. H. Dowling, C.E. Octavo, strongly bound, 10 shillings 6 pence. The Iron and Metal Trades Companion, for expeditiously ascertaining the value of any goods bought or sold by weight, by Thomas Downey, 396 pages, leather, 9 shillings. Number, weight, and fractional calculator, containing upwards of 250,000 separate calculations, showing at a glance the value of 422 different rates, ranging from 1/128th of a penny to 20 shillings each, of any number of articles consecutively from 1 to 470, by William Chadwick, Public Accountant, 3rd edition, revised, octavo, strongly bound, 18 shillings. The Weight Calculator, being a series of tables upon a new and comprehensive plan, exhibiting at one reference the exact value of any weight from 1 pound to 15 tons, at 300 progressive rates, and containing 186,000 direct answers, which, with their combinations, consisting of a single addition, mostly to be performed at sight, will afford an aggregate of 10,266,000 answers, the whole being calculated and designed to ensure correctness and promote dispatch, by Henry Harbin, Accountant, 5th edition, carefully corrected, Royal Octavo, strongly half-bound, 1 pound 5 shillings. The Discount Guide, comprising several series of tables for the use of merchants, manufacturers, ironmongers, and others, by which may be ascertained the exact profit arising from any mode of using discounts, either in the purchase or sale of goods, and the method of either altering a rate of discount or advancing a price so as to produce, by one operation, a sum that will realize any required profit after allowing one or more discounts, to which are added tables of profit or advance from 1 1/4 to 90%, tables of discount from 1 1/4 to 98 3/4%, and tables of commission, etc., from 1/8 to 10%, by Henry Harbin, Accountant, new edition, corrected, demi-octavo, half-bound, 1 pound 5 shillings. Tables of wages at 54, 52, 50, and 48 hours per week, showing the amounts of wages from 1/4 of an hour to 64 hours, in each case at rates of wages advancing by 1 shilling from 4 shillings to 55 shillings per week, by Thomas Garbutt, Accountant, square crown octavo, half-bound, 6 shillings. Iron plate weight tables, for iron shipbuilders, engineers, and iron merchants, containing the calculated weights of upwards of 150,000 different sizes of iron plates, from 1 foot by 6 inches by 1/4 inch to 10 feet by 5 feet by 1 inch, worked out on the basis of 40 pounds to the square foot of iron of 1 inch in thickness, by H. Burlinson and W. H. Simpson, quarto, half bound, 1 pound 5 shillings. Mathematical tables, actuarial, comprising commutation and conversion tables, logarithms, co-logarithms, antilogarithms, and reciprocals, by J. W. Gordon. Royal Octavo, mounted on canvas in cloth case. Just published, 5 shillings. Law and Miscellaneous. Modern Journalism. A Handbook of Instruction and Counsel for the Young Journalist, by John B. Mackey, Fellow of the Institute of Journalists. Crown octavo, cloth, 2 shillings. Handbook for Solicitors and Engineers, engaged in promoting private acts of Parliament and provisional orders for the authorization of railways, tramways, gas and waterworks, etc., by L. Livingstone Macassey, of the Middle Temple, Barrister at Law, M.I.C.E. Octavo, cloth, 1 pound 5 shillings. Patents for Inventions, how to procure them, compiled for the use of inventors, patentees, and others, by G. G. M. Hardingham, A.M.I.C.E., etc. Demi-octavo, cloth, 1 shilling 6 pence. Conciliation and Arbitration in Labor Disputes, a historical sketch and brief statement of the present position of the question at home and abroad, by J. S. Jeanes, author of England's Supremacy, etc. Crown octavo, 200 pages, cloth, 2 shillings 6 pence. Every Man's Own Lawyer, a handy book of the principles of law and equity, with a concise dictionary of legal terms, by a barrister. 37th edition, carefully revised, and including new Acts of Parliament of 1899, comprising the London Government Act, 1899, Sale of Food and Drugs Act, 1899, Infectious Diseases Notification Act, 1899, Small Dwellings Acquisition Act, 1899, Commons Act, 1899, besides the Benefices Act, 1898, Marriage Act, 1898, Inebriates Acts, 1898 and 1899, Criminal Evidence Act, 1898, Vaccination Act, 1898, etc. Judicial decisions during the year have also been duly noted. Crown octavo, 750 pages, strongly bound in cloth. Just published, 6 shillings 8 pence. The Pawnbrokers, Factors, and Merchants' Guide to the Law of Loans and Pledges, with the statutes and a digest of cases, by H. C. Folcard, Barrister at Law. Cloth, 3 shillings 6 pence. Labor Contracts, a popular handbook on the law of contracts for works and services, by David Gibbons, 4th edition, with appendix of statutes, by T. F. Utley, solicitor. Foolscap octavo, cloth, 3 shillings 6 pence. Summary of the Factory and Workshop Acts, 1878 to 1891, for the use of manufacturers and managers, by Emile Gark and J. M. Fells, reprinted from Factory Accounts. Crown octavo, sewed, 6 pence. End of Section 3. Read by Verla Vieira in Las Cruces, New Mexico, USA, June 14th, 2023.